Sometimes trainee interpreters ask if there are any special memory techniques that they can use to improve their consecutive without notes, because they're particularly worried about forgetting some of the information. Well, I'm not going to talk specifically about special memory training techniques. They do exist, there are books about them, and there are certainly plenty of anecdotes about interpreters who've managed to remember a 20-minute after-dinner speech by connecting the ideas in the speech with the way that the cutlery was arranged on the table, that sort of thing. These techniques don't work for me, I don't use them, and in my experience, students tend not to use them either. But by all means, go and investigate these types of techniques if they suit the way that your brain works. In my experience, trainee interpreters tend to use variants of the following techniques. The first one that I want to talk about is a very simple technique, and it involves counting off the main ideas that are contained in the speech that you're listening to. Let's say that you are listening to a speech which contains the pros and cons of a particular idea. There are 3 pros and 4 cons. What you do as you're listening to the speech is stick your finger out when you hear idea number 1. You may want to do it a little bit more subtly than this. And then idea 2, idea 3. So that when you've heard the whole of the speech, you know how many main ideas you need to convey when you are interpreting. The second technique is one that I will have to illustrate with an example, and it involves fixing in your mind the main ideas that the speaker is going through. Here's my example. Let's say you're listening to a speech about veganism, and the speaker is explaining why we should all be vegans and gives 3 main reasons why veganism is a good idea. First of all, it's good for the environment. Secondly, it's good for animal welfare. And thirdly, it's good for your health. What you do is, while you're listening to the speech, when the speaker comes to point 1, it's good for the environment, you use the finger technique, perhaps, and you think to yourself, point 1, environment, environment. Then, of course, your speaker is going to go on and give further information, examples, to illustrate their main point. So you need to listen to that and absorb it, but remember that is all under the heading point 1, environment. Your speaker now moves on to point 2, it's better for animal welfare. So that gives you a chance to fix in your mind environment, animal welfare, environment, animal welfare. And in your mind, meanwhile, you can be building your picture of the battery chicken in a very tiny cage, whatever else your speaker is saying to illustrate their idea. The speaker then moves on to point 3. It's good for your health. Now you have fixed in your minds the 3 main points, and you can repeat to yourself, environment, animal welfare, health. And in this way, when the speaker reaches the end of their speech, you know where you're going. You've got the main points fixed in your mind, and you will then fill in around those points with the detail, with the illustrations that will flesh out the speech. The third technique that you can use is one that I've alluded to already, and really, if you do what I've just been talking about, you're halfway there. And this technique involves fixing the whole structure of a speech in your mind. Now, there are different ways of visualizing the structure of a speech. For you, it may be a sort of bullet point structure, or it may look more like a mind map, or it may look like some kind of tree diagram, whatever works for you. It's very important to pay special attention to a speaker's conclusion. Unfortunately, it's very easy for your concentration to dip when you sense that a speaker is coming to the end of what they have to say. And at the same time, you may be busy thinking to yourself, what was my first point? What was my second point? And so it's very easy to miss their conclusion. And that is a great pity, because the conclusion is where the speaker will typically recap the information that they've already given to their audience, or this is where they may put in their personal opinion, and that's a very important part of what they're trying to convey. Or a speaker may even introduce a twist in the conclusion, which completely changes the meaning of what they've said so far, or sets them off in a different direction. And it's essential that you manage to get that across.